This is Whiskey Happens, and this week we are talking about alternative to some of the Buffalo Trace products that you're having trouble finding.
I think this is something that a lot of people have, not everybody, but people I've talked to have a tough time finding Buffalo Trace products, even in Texas, um, which is, I would say, a little bit easier to find maybe like actual Buffalo Trace. But when some of the other ones that we're going to talk about tonight are hard to find. And so we're going to give you guys the alternatives to ones that we can find or most people can find on shelves. So,
Yeah,
Garrett,
I think
what do you
that
got?
it's one of those things of, Buffalo Trace products, not just Buffalo Trace, is so hard to find. We're just coming off beef tax season where most
Yep,
people did find
a
what they were
ton.
looking for. Not saying people got an MSRP or anything, but if you're willing to pay, it wasn't really that hard to find it this season.
I agree.
However, we're going to be transitioning back into regular. Where can I find the H Taylor barrel proof, or where can I find a Stag Match 19
Yeah.
whenever that drops? Um, but anyway, like Trevor said, you don't have to look that hard for a good whiskey or bourbon. So, without further ado, here is what we think are better alternatives, or not better, but alternatives.
Hmm.
So, first up, we have the namesake Buffalo Trace. This just happens to be a 1 liter. I do have 750 somewhere, but that was
Get the
supposed to
big
be.
boy.
Uh, I only grabbed it because I've never seen a 1 liter. I've seen the 1.75s. I have a little pony 350 over here, uh,
Oh, there you go.
700, 750 somewhere else. So they come in all sizes.
They
Um,
do.
Buffalo Trace, for the most part, for most people, unless you're in Texas, you can regularly get it $25. But most of us are paying anywhere from 35 in the generous area to upwards of $60. The juice is good. I'm not gonna lie. It's a great mixer. It's a great sipper. However, it's not readily available for most of us if you're not living in Texas. I've seen it in Ohio. Um, or if you're in any state right now, they got an RDC dump. Of course, you're benefiting from it. Who
If you're in
knows how things
Arizona,
gonna
I hate you. Just FYI.
we don't know how it's gonna reshape. However, um, my suggestion, my alternative is actually stepping outside of Buffalo Trace is rumored to be mashable one somewhere between 6 to 9 years, allegedly.
Yeah.
But my suggestion is Woodford Reserve wheat.
Oh, yeah.
And I know that a wheated mash bill against mash bill one's low rye isn't exactly apples to apples. However, what is price point. This is $38, $40 all day long, regardless of whatever state you're in. And it's going to be on the shelf unless for whatever reason they don't carry Woodford products. On top of that, it has a similar proof point as well, 90.4, the signature Woodford proof versus the 90 here. Um, with that being said, great caramel, cherry notes. It's got a bit of a spicier finish. However, I like that back end note, especially when you are using it as a mixer, because it still lets you know you have a little oomph in there.
Yeah.
So yeah, Woodford.
That's awesome. I love that. To me, that's a great comparison. And I love my Woodford as well, especially everything they've been doing over the last couple of years. So for mine, I want to talk about Eagle Rare. So Eagle Rare, 10-year age statement, super hard to find. Used to not be. I remember back when, and this has still got the Sazerac tag on it because I keep them, and every time the new one's open, I put the Sazerac tag because I went to Sazerac a couple years ago, right before COVID or right during COVID, and I went to the Sazerac House in New Orleans, and they had cases upon cases of Eagle Rare uh, in all different types of, everything you could possibly want. Let me put it that way, from Buffalo Trace and Sazerac. And I was like, oh, this is going to be so easy. I'll just come back to New Orleans whenever I need to grab some more. Yeah, that didn't happen. They ran out really quick when people started realizing they didn't have a limit on what you could buy, and people bought cases upon cases. But
It's
that
different
being
time.
said, it is a different time. But that being said, price point for Eagle Rare should be around $40. MSRP probably going to see it closer to 60, maybe $80 in most places, if they have it. And I've seen it upwards to 100 and plus, just depending on where you're getting it from.
You
So
know, if I
my
could jump in for
alternative,
a second, only because this
yeah,
happened
go ahead.
today. And in one of
Yeah.
my groups, a person posted a picture of Eagle Rare in a store, and within the same store, on one shelf, it is $69, like it's a special. And then
Hmm.
another shelf, it's next to, I believe, Buffalo Trace, and it's priced $79 in the
Wow.
same store. And I'm just like, do they get confused on their own secondary markups?
Yeah.
Um, which is crazy to me. But also, it's unfortunate that people are having to pay upwards $80 and $90 for Eagle Rare.
I agree. Because to me, this is out of what we're going to talk about tonight. The bottles we're going to talk about tonight. This is my favorite. This is the go-to best tasting out of the ones we're going to talk about tonight. In my opinion, I liked doing this comparison because I found something that I feel is very comparable. Usually on the shelf everywhere. It's starting to get a little harder to find in some places, but almost every place I go has it, and that's Russell's 10. So Russell's 10-year age statement, about this, right at the same proof, 90 proof, um, and around the same price point, about $45. So you're not going to really pay a whole lot more. You can find it in most places. And to be honest with you, I had my brother here this weekend. I had him taste Russell's 13 and Russell's 10 and did a blind, and he chose Russell's 10 over Russell's 13, just like Garrett and
Mm.
I did. And so I think a lot of people don't think about going to this when they're searching for a product similar to some of the Buffalo Trace products, because you get those same sweet notes up front, but then it's got that little bit spice on the back. And kind of like you said with your comparison, Garrett, these are a little bit spicier on the back end than Buffalo Trace products. Buffalo Trace products tend to just be sweet kind of all the way through and mellow. But it's nice to get some of that spice on the back end. And that's what you get with Russell's 10 for me.
I used to
That would
think
be,
it was my favorite until I met Phil, and my palate's not as good enough as his to pick it out in a tasting.
yeah.
But it's one of those things. So next up, I have each Taylor small batch bottled and bond. I think this is, even if you are paying secondary, this is the most commonly found out of the each Taylor lineup between a single barrel proof, and the rye. Except for the barrel proof. They're all at 100 proof, bottled and bond. This retails for about $40. Good luck
Mhm.
if you can find it there. This in some stores I see as much as 150. In some online groups I see it as much as 100. I don't. Every once in a while, someone might get it out for 120, 110, but pretty much around 100.
Yep.
I think it's a pretty decent pour. Don't get me wrong. However, I just bought another bottle the other day, so I do enjoy it.
Yeah.
But availability is what we're talking about here. That's the
Correct.
problem. So, and I didn't realize this until right before we started. Again, I find myself at Brown Foreman with
Hmm.
Cooper's Craft Reserve 100. I discovered this about 2 years ago. We've talked about it in other episodes. And believe it or
Yes.
not, or at least to me, they both have the same cherry vanilla notes. I think,
Hmm.
in all honesty, Cooper's Craft, it's more pronounced and does it just a little bit better, and the finish lasts longer. The Eve's Taylor, and the popularity of it is definitely because it finishes nice and easy. Cooper's Craft is definitely more distinguished. I'm not sure if it has anything to do with, and if you guys are not familiar, real quick, Cooper's Craft was an homage to the Coopers. Brown Foreman has always done their own barrels. They've had their own cooperage since it was called Bluegrass Cooperage back in 1945. It's right there on the neck. If you guys were wondering what that was, it says BF Cooperage because now it's Brown Foreman, but originally in 1945 it was Bluegrass. And they groove the staves before they char it, and that's supposed to be giving it the extra flavor or
Wow.
a depthness of flavor. And I'm not sure if that's true or not. I've never worked in Cooper's a day in my life, but I think it helps. For whatever reason, here I pay 35 to 40 for this. However, very first bottle I got was in Oklahoma. I believe I got for $25. I routinely see in other states around $30. But the point of this is that always there. Any store I've ever walked into, you will definitely see Cooper's Craft Reserve, unless you're just in a maybe a highly tourist area, and they just stick to the stuff they know that moves.
Because I agree with you, Garrett. I think it's phenomenal juice. I think it's very underrated.
Yeah, for something, I forget how long it'd been since Brown Forman introduced a new whiskey bourbon into their catalog. But when the Cooper's Craft, I think it's 86 proof, was introduced 2016, 2017, I was just like, do we need this? And I discovered the reserve and I was like, oh yes, yes, we do.
Yeah,
Travis,
that's awesome.
what are you bringing up?
All right, so mine's Blanton's. Last but not least, most expensive in my opinion in the lineup. Probably most expensive on secondary for the normal Buffalo Trace product line. So this product comes in at 93 proof. It's good. It's not great. It is what it is. It is the iconic Buffalo Trace product. Everyone knows about Blanton's. Even if you're not into bourbon, everyone knows the shape of that bottle, the horse on top. It is straight Kentucky. And that is what everyone talks about. And this is what everyone wants. Even people who don't drink bourbon, they will go in and buy this for people just as gifts because they've heard things about it. So that being said, for me, what is super comparable to Buffalo Trace is Four Roses. Four Roses single barrel, 100 proof. It is, to me, one of the most comparable because the price point is about the same. The age statement is around the same, 7 to 8 years. It's a little higher proof. To me, that means it tastes a little bit better, just in my comparison. But 40, 50 bucks normally in most places, and you can find it in every bar. That's the best part. Like, that's my go-to in a bar is Four Roses. Sometimes it's single barrel, sometimes it's small batch, whatever they might have. But if they have a single barrel, I'm always going to the single barrel. And you get the sweetness, you get the comparability all the way through on the palate. And like I said, it's easier to find. And to me, it tastes better. It is just a better tasting bourbon than Blanton's is. Blanton's great. And like I said, it's there for what it is. But there are other ones out there. And that single barrel to me is way better. So.
It's real quick and similar ballpark is that I almost chose small batch for the Buffalo Trace comparison because of proof. However, when it comes down to it, like small batch Four Roses to me is more of a sipper to me. I don't ever mix with that. Not saying you can't, not telling people how to drink the bourbon whatsoever. It's just when it comes to like something that's interchangeable,
Yeah.
I've never put a splash of Coke, ginger ale, Sprite, Mountain Dew, or whatever and Four Roses. I don't know why, but that's how it got edged out.
Very true.
Anyway, those are our selections for Buffalo Trace alternatives. If you guys like what you saw, agree, let us know. You want us to see us do more bottles, perhaps the Weller lineup, let us know. Until then, doesn't matter if you're like a neat, on the rocks, or in a Coke. Whiskey happens. Cheers.
Cheers.